Okay, what I'm starting off with is 6 pounds of strawberries. Got a good deal on them, 99 cents a pound. I got a pound and a half of rhubarb. So I'm going to make some strawberry rhubarb jam. Went ahead and started prepping the area. That's where the jars will go. There's my pot. I'm going to mainly do half pints, so I got some 4-ounce jars and a couple pint jars. Okay, the first thing I'm going to do is go ahead and sort out my strawberries and rinse them off and get them ready to be cut up. All we're looking for is grossly contaminated ones like this. They're already starting to mold. Stick these extra ones out of the way for a minute. So when preparing the strawberries, there's a couple different ways to do it. What I'm going to do is core them and then slice them. You don't want little bitty chunks. I'll give you an idea how big you want. Nope, hold on, I forgot. My detritus bowl. So all I do is just pour it out like that. What about half-inch chunks? Up to an inch. Not super precise. Alright, I'm going to pause it there. You don't need to see me cut up 6 pounds of strawberries. That will get very boring. So, be back in a minute or 30. Just a quick update. I've got the first 3 pounds of strawberries chopped in the bowl, starting on the second 3 pounds over here. And we'll see how many cups all that makes, and then we will go ahead and chop the rhubarb. So I have 6 pounds of chopped up strawberries. Gonna set them aside and work on the rhubarb. Alright, so like I said, I got a pound and a half of rhubarb here. I'm gonna wet it back down. It's been sitting in the fridge after I bought it, cleaned it, and chopped it down a little bit. With the rhubarb, the stalks are various thicknesses. It's all pretty thick. There's some thinner pieces. The main thing with the rhubarb is you don't want the pieces any bigger than the strawberry pieces. So whatever you got to do to get them, you also want them no more than a ½ inch thick when you're chopping them. And for those of you who have not worked with rhubarb, it's pretty similar to celery, as you can see. It's not exactly the same. So it's about ½ inch pieces is what you want to wind up with. Alright, I'm going to pause it here and come back after I chop up all this rhubarb. Okay, I got everything prepped. I've got the strawberries, the rhubarb. We're also going to be adding some sugar, cinnamon, nutmeg, and minute tapioca is what I'm going to use as the thickener. This is what I used in the recipe for the pie, and basically I'm creating the pie filling that will be the jam, but you could obviously also use it as pie filling. This is my first attempt at jamming this, or making this in the jam, as it were. So I'm using basically the same recipe that I used making the pie. So with that said, I think I need a bigger spoon. Two and a half cups of strawberries. Two and a half cups of rhubarb. Making a little bit of a mess. Another 2.5 cups of rhubarb. And another 2.5 cups of strawberries. And the reason I'm saying 2.5 cups is because that's what the original recipe is in. So that's what I'm basing my measurements off of. With that, for each 2.5 cups of fruit, 2.5 cups of strawberries, 2.5 of rhubarb, then we add 1 cup and 1/4 of sugar. So 1 cup and 1/4 of sugar. And we're going to go low. Yeah, that's not going to work. I was thinking I needed a wooden one. Mix. Alright, we're just gonna do a pinch of salt. 1 pinch, actually 2 because we're doubling the recipe. 2 pinch. Tablespoon of lemon juice. It would have been 1/2 tablespoon for 2.5 cups, 2.5 cups. We don't need to add the liquid. As you can see, the strawberries are very liquidy. They're going to cook down nicely. Well, let me say, I believe I don't need to add extra liquid. As I've said, I have never made this into jam before, but the filling in the pie was at a very jam-like consistency. Let me check the time, 6:49. This is going to cook for an hour on low. Alright, so like I said, we had some spices, just a little bit of nutmeg and cinnamon. That one's about out. So 1/4, that's what you use for 2.5 cups for the regular recipe. Looks like I need to open up my other nutmeg. 1/4. So, and then the same half teaspoon, half teaspoon. Alright. I got the minute tapioca. That is what is our thickening agent. And I think you can see how liquidy it has gotten in just a few minutes since I started cooking it. But we need it to cook for an hour to soften up that rhubarb. Because like you saw, or if you've cut it before, you know it's very hard. It's similar to celery, but it's a bit harder, but it does need to cook down to soften up. Alright, so what we're doing here, it's going to be a pain in the butt. Let me get a little dish. One, two, three. 4, 5, and mostly 6, and just a pinch more. Can't quite have those full tablespoons. So there you go. That's going to make sure that everything sets up once it cools. There we go. This helps to get the flame. Alright, I'm just looking at the flame. I'm going to set the clock for 30 minutes so I can just check it, stir it, make sure it's going good, and then we'll come back and see how everything's going. Still have a whole lot of strawberries, so that's going to be strawberry jam. So we'll check back in 30 minutes. In the meantime, I'm going to clean up some of my mess. Alright, we're only 20 minutes into the cook process. I had to turn down the heat a little bit. It's really important to keep it as low as you can when it's cooking, because it started boiling, and we want it hot, but we don't want it over boiling, over cooking. But you can see how everything's cooking down nice, very nicely. There's going to be some good chunks in there, but we want it to get good and liquidy, as liquidy as we can. Alright, back to the cook. Okay, I'm at the 30-minute mark of the cooking process, and I'm thinking that it's a little too thick for jam without any extra added water. What do you guys think? I'll stir it real good, but I'm thinking maybe I should add a half a cup of liquid, which means water, to thin it out a little bit. So that's, you know what, I'm going to start off with just a quarter cup, just to thin it out a little bit more, because you want jam nice and thick, but you don't want it so thick that it's not spreadable. And this is going to set up and thicken a good bit once it's cooled. So, and like I said, I've never made this as jam before. This is what I use to make a pie filling. And pie filling you want nice and thick and set up really well. Jam you want just a little bit thinner than that. So, there we go, quarter cup. We got 30 more minutes of cook time. The big pot is my canning pot, and I've already got the water preheated on that. I've got the jars, and I'll show you. Get my fingers out of the way. So I got the jars staying warm in the oven at just, it's a little bit lower than 200. Let's turn it up just a little bit. We want those just staying right at 200. I've already washed and sterilized them. That's just going to keep them warm. That way when the hot liquid goes into the jars are already hot, so there's, you know, no chance of them breaking. So that's where we're at. We're going to put the lid back on it because we don't want a lot of evaporation to occur, and let it go for 30 more minutes, and we'll see how it goes. Okay, time for the actual canning process here. So you can't see it here, but I got my trivet sitting on the counter. I'm getting ready to move this nice, beautiful mess right here. You can see it's bubbling away. Haven't turned down the heat yet. I did add a second quarter cup of water, just because again it was looking a little bit too thick, and coming out of the pan it needs to be a little bit runny. You can see how thick it is, and that it's going to thicken up nicely. So the other thing you may notice is that there's some pieces of fruit. That's the strawberry The rhubarb has pretty much all broken down into the little strings that are reminiscent of celery strings. Don't think it broke down that much in the pie that I did, and I'm just wondering if it's part of how it's being cooked here. So I'm going to take this off, set it right there on my trivet, and you see I've got my canning funnel ready. I've got the jar of water right there boiling. I'm going to turn up the heat up front. Move this off the back burner. It's nice and heavy to the front burner. Shut that down. So let's get some jars and get going. Like I said, I got the jars over here in the oven. Keep it nice and warm. Alright, first one goes to the center. And it's already starting to bubble. Grab those. I just realized you couldn't see that. Sorry. I forgot to readjust the camera. Anyways, that's in there. Pick that sucker up. Right on in the bath. And go grab the next jar. Alright, here we got a wide mouth, half pint, and let's see how the funnel works with those, because it's a little bit odd. Three. Let's see how that looks. Alright, so these wide mouthers throwing my measurements off. I can see I need to be a little bit more generous. There we go. Perfect. Lid. Bring grabbers. dog poop. Okay, so this last jar, not quite the right headspace, and we're gonna go ahead and do it anyways. I may keep it for my first taste test jar. A little bit of jam right here on the outside. Alright, all the jars are in. What we got? 2 pints, 5 half pints. Throw a lid on. Just get that sucker up to a boil. $15 minutes on the timer, and we'll be right back. Alrighty, 15 minutes, we are done. I always try to take them out in the reverse of the order that I put them in. On two-handed jar, just tighten that ring down a little bit, turn off the top, stick it over there in the corner. That's that is my sourdough yeast going. So in hindsight, I should have probably did the 2 big jars first. That way the gap wouldn't have been as bad in one of the little jars. But be that as it may, there we go. 5 half pints, 2 pints out of 5 cups strawberries, 5 cups rhubarb, and all the other stuff in there. So we had a smidge of rhubarb left over, not really enough to do a batch with, so it's going to go in the freezer along with approximately 4 quarts of strawberries that are going to go into the freezer until I get around to making my next batch of jams, which probably going to try a strawberry blueberry this year once we get some more blueberries gathered. That's it for now. Thanks for watching, and somebody will be lucky enough to get to taste test this with me. I've already tasted it as I was cleaning up all the leftovers, and it does taste delicious. So, till next time.